name is Anita Manuel, and I will be your facilitator today. I am the Associate Director for Career Education at San Jose State. And fun fact, I have been at the institution for 18 years, all at the Career Center, various roles. Absolutely love what I do there. I'm joined today by our co-host and my colleague, Thuy Nguyen, and she will be answering some questions as we go along or pausing me if there are questions that are blowing up in the Q&A, so I know that we have some discussion time. And today's topic is resume writing. So let's dive right on in. My goal today, if all goes according to plan, is to give you some resources and tips to get your resume from that bottom of the pile to the top of the pile, right? We want to make sure that your resumes are getting seen by the recruiters and the hiring managers that you are trying to, apply to specific positions for. And then, of course, if you get stuck along the way, provide resources so that you know how to get some answers and some tips on how to improve your resume or overcome some of those challenges. So now that we know that the chat is not working great, if you can put in the question and answer what you think the purpose of a resume is. Like, why do we still write resumes? A lot of people feel like this is an antiquated practice, but I just want to get a sense from you, like, why are we doing this? Why do we write this supposed like 1-page, possibly 2-page document that's supposed to show how awesome you are? And I'll see if there's anything in the Q&A of some responses. Why do we do resumes anyway? Oh, we got a lot of majors in here. Okay, and we're scrolling to the bottom here for the why. No post.
See in the chat as well. I think it's enabled now.
Okay, so high level of overview of experience, I see one person, but really the why of why we write this document, the whole point is it's a marketing tool. This is your way of presenting specific skills, experiences, and education as it relates to a specific job or internship. And a hiring manager and employer is really looking at this document as a way to see if you fit the criteria that they have for these positions. Because it's a marketing tool, it's not a novel, it's not a cover letter, it's not an essay. There are some different nuances on how to make a concise and easy to read resume so that those employers who are looking at whether or not where you are in this long stack of resumes that get sent to positions, that you can stand out from all those positions rather quickly. So that's a lot for a 1-page, 2-page document to do. The other question I have for you is, I want to make sure I answer the questions that you all have. And I want to know some of the questions that you currently have about writing a resume. Where are you getting stuck, or what are some things that you want to make sure that I cover today? And if the chat is working, okay, cool. Chat is working now, amen. So we're going to use the chat, everyone. So formatting, a lot of questions on formatting. I will definitely cover formatting today. Okay, so far it looks like the biggest thing is formatting. Any resume templates, I will share templates. Yep. Sometimes they're absolutely too wordy. I agree with you. So I will be giving you tips, not just from my experience working at the Career Center and sitting on hundreds of hiring committees myself as a hiring manager, but also my previous experience working as a recruiter in industry. So I have been on both sides of the table, and I can definitely tell you what not to do as well. References, addresses, these are all good questions. So I will be sure to hit that in the formatting. Okay, thank you everyone for giving me some guidance. Oh, this is a good one. So information to put when I have no work experience. We're going to talk about that today. And how students, especially those who are still building experience, can highlight classes and projects. So really good question. Okay, I'm excited. You all have some really good questions. Okay, so first let's do some quick trivia. How long does the average employer look at a resume? You can put this in the chat, and Twee, you can shout it out to me so that I can keep going. Is it about 5 minutes, a minute, 30 seconds, or 10 seconds? Oh, I see the chat blowing up. Twee, what do we got?
I'm seeing 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 30, 1, 30, 30, 10, 1, 1, 1, 30,
1
30.
minute. Yeah.
A lot
Okay.
of 10, 30.
So
1 minute.
it's about 10 seconds. I've seen everything from 7 seconds. The most I've ever seen on some of the research and surveying is like 12 seconds. But if you talk to any hiring manager, myself included, I am scanning that resume for keywords. And if I have a pile of like 150 or 200 to go through, you can bet that it's really going to be a quick scan. Whether that's the best method or not, probably not the best method, but that is the reality given the scale of how many applications come in for different positions. Okay, so for those who got 10 seconds, you are correct. We're going to do a quick experiment on this. So if you have a resume or a document in front of you, pull it out right now. If you don't have a resume, piece of paper, whatever, okay? And I want you to look at it, and I'm going to actually time you for 10 seconds because it's one thing to hear what 10 seconds is, but it goes by super fast. Okay, so you all ready? You have your piece of paper? Okay, I'm looking at mine. Okay, ready, go. Stop. That was 10 seconds. How far did you get on that document? I don't know if anyone has any in chats, but let's see. Let's see how far you got. You barely started. Not far at all. Beginning. Oh, someone got halfway. That's impressive. Yeah, you skipped the shorter words. Okay. Someone said they got to the end. I don't want to call anyone out, but if you got to the end, that's pretty amazing. And I would probably want to ask you, like, what did you remember? So this is a really good practice, even if you do with your friends. Once you have your resume written, if you bring it into career counselors, like give it the 10-second rule and then ask that person, whether it's a friend or, you know, a classmate or your career counselor, what did you remember about my resume and how far did you get? Because those are really accurate measures of what's popping out to another person as they're looking at your document. Okay, so now that we've gotten warmed up, everyone's like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to write this document? Like, what is it that employers are seeking? So that I know what to put on this resume. And I know it sounds really simplistic, but the easiest thing you can do is really take time to review the job description for the position that you're applying. So if you've never written a resume before, we have some templates that you can use that I'm going to show you where you can find the templates so you have an idea of the type of information to put. But when you're ready to start submitting your resume for specific roles, you really have to start looking at, you know, Handshake or LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever you're using to find positions, and read those job descriptions carefully, because the employer is basically telling you the main skills and experiences that they want, and they're going to look for those keywords in your resume. Now, does that mean that you might tailor your resume for each position that you apply to because it might be slightly different? Yes. If it seems like a lot of work to do that, yes, it does take work to do that. But the results are going to be much better if you tailor your resume to those job descriptions than if you just send kind of a general resume. Because again, if I'm scanning and I don't see keywords that really resonate with what I put in a job description, I'm going to move on. So when you're looking at the job description, and I'm old school, I like to print things out, and I like highlighters, and I will literally highlight keywords, experiences, required skills that are listed, and also the preferred qualifications. And we'll talk about what that might look like in a job description. And then if there are things that I actually have when I'm highlighting these things, I'll either like put a check mark next to it or star it just to remind me that I have those skills and that I have to make sure that those are identified in my resume. Okay. So what does this look like? This is an actual job description of a position that was posted in Handshake. And before I go any further, Handshake is our internship and job database that is open to all students at SJSU. And you can use it through your single sign-on. I'll have Twee put a link to Handshake, but I'll also show you where you can find it on our website. But that's really the easiest way to find internships and jobs for students at SJSU. Okay, so this job description is from Handshake, and it's for an accounting position. And it's basically says we have an internship position available in the accounting division of CSAA Insurance Group. We are searching for a self-motivated individual who is seeking a career in accounting. This is a great opportunity to build your resume and gain experience working for an insurance carrier. What we're looking for. So CSAAIG believes strongly in mentorship, and we are seeking current junior or senior college students to participate in a 10-week internship. We're looking for a detail-oriented, diligent, and self-motivated individual. Must have knowledge of MS Office and completed introductory accounting courses. Experience in QuickBooks is a plus. Okay. So my question to you is, when you start looking at this, what are the required skills? Like the skills you must have to actually get this job. And then what are the preferred skills? Meaning skills that the employer is saying, we would really love to have this. This would be our ideal candidate would have this, but you may not actually need to have it to do the job. Because those are the two things that you really want to look at when you're trying to identify what to put on your resume is, do I meet the required skills, which are essential? And do I have any of the preferred skills, which would make me a stronger candidate than others? Okay, so what does this look like? So here's the highlighting what the required skills. You have to have an interest in accounting, okay? Self-motivated, that came up twice as a keyword. So any keywords that are repeated are things that are really important to the employer. Again, seeking a career in accounting, definitely something that you should highlight in your resume in some way. They're looking for juniors or seniors. So if you're a first-year student and you want to apply to this job, they may not look at you as a viable candidate because they're really saying they want juniors and seniors. Now we can talk a little bit later and have a discussion about whether or not there are nuances or special types of situations where you could apply, and there might be, but really they're stating pretty succinctly that they would like a junior or senior level ability to do 10 weeks. So sometimes they'll say like an internship position, but not state how long. But if someone puts in a really specific timeline or length of position, it means that they really want someone to be able to fulfill the length of that time. So 10-week internship seems essential. Detail-oriented, diligent, self-motivated. Okay, so we've got some characteristics, personal characteristics that they're seeking too. And then they have to have the MS Office and then the introductory accounting courses completed. The only like preferred skill that didn't say absolutely required is this experience with QuickBooks. Okay. So we talked about what must be on your resume, but my question is, how are you going to show that you're self-motivated and detail-oriented? Because those are characteristics that are hard to share. Like you can show me that you have accounting experience by maybe talking about the classes that you're taking, or if you're majoring in accounting. You can definitely prove and show to me that you've completed certain courses, but how do you show that you're self-motivated and detail-oriented? I'm gonna put that out to the crowd. Any ideas on how you show that on a resume? And you can put your ideas in the chat. See what we got. Yeah, absolutely no typos in the resume. Let's see. Any ideas on how to show self-motivated or detail-oriented? And Twee, let me know if you see anything that comes in.
I see adding, make a detailed resume, adding it on, add on a summary, put soft skill in the highlighted skills section, taking a lot of class, and all of this coming in a form of questions. So
yeah,
put it in the objective summary part, provide example, situation, experience that you were self-motivated.
So we're going to talk about that because I think that's really hard is like, do I just list self-motivated, detail-oriented, diligent in the skills section? Is that enough? And you can, but it really is more powerful if you show how you are motivated and detail-oriented in the examples of the experiences that you have. And we call those accomplishment statements. So let's walk through the format really quick. Okay, so this is an example of a pretty strong format, one that we recommend. You'll find that it has very what we call like simple text format, meaning there's not any tables or grids or a lot of like imagery on it, no colors, it's black and white. Some people find that like, oh, this is kind of boring. It doesn't really show my personality in any way. However, when someone is scanning a resume for keywords, and also we're going to talk about applicant tracking systems, where these resumes are usually uploaded into a software system that's scanning for keywords first before it even gets to a human being. This simple text format is probably the easiest format for both the applicant tracking system to review and also for someone to really find the key information that they're looking for. So always at the top, your name has to be centered, at least 14-point font in bold. It has to stand out who you are. And then the second line is your contact information. Someone asked about addresses. So I would not put your personal address on your resume, right? Especially if you're uploading your resume into a public type of platform like an Indeed or a resume bank that might be viewed by others. So putting the city and state is enough. Use a phone number that you check on a regular basis and make sure that once you start sending that resume out, that voicemail on whatever phone number you list on there is professional, right? So that if an employer calls, that they understand who you are and that it's not maybe something that you would be embarrassed for an employer to hear, right? Your email address, some students use their SJSU email, which you can use, but I would probably highly recommend creating a separate email address just for your job applications through Gmail. And then the last piece that you can include on that information section is your LinkedIn profile. And we won't really get into LinkedIn in this particular workshop, but just know that we do offer a workshop on how to create your LinkedIn profile. But it's become pretty industry standard now that employers are going to want to see what your LinkedIn profile is. And that's really where you can add some more of your personality, right? You can add an image to your LinkedIn profile. You can give examples of your work. You can get testimonials. You can put references on there. But really for the resume, it's specific to what type of job or internship you're seeking, your education, what are you studying, what classes you've taken, any relevant projects that you've done in class. That's the next section. And then we'll look at the second half of this resume. So for the next piece is an objective statement, and that's usually telling me, the employer, right away, what type of position you're applying to, and then whether it's a full-time position or an internship, right? Some people have, there's debate on whether or not an objective statement is still valid. Some people prefer using what we call a summary, which kind of gives an overview of who you are, what motivates you, why you're interested in a certain field. It can highlight some of these soft skills, or they're not really soft skills. I don't like using that, but the non-technical skills, the characteristic skills like self-motivated, detail-oriented. The problem with the summary of qualifications is if you don't have at least 3 to 5 years of experience, it can sound a little bit like a cover letter or kind of take up too much space for some of the other things that you want to highlight. So I tend to tell students, if you're looking for internships, if you haven't yet graduated, definitely use the objective statement. If you're someone who has some previous work experience, you're finishing your degree, you're a master's student, maybe a summary with like no more than 3 bullet points would suffice. Now, here's where our student, I'm a Spartan, actually put some of that self-motivated, detail-oriented stuff. A self-motivated, detail-oriented college junior seeking an internship in the accounting division of CSAA Insurance. So very specific. Type of role, what company? And she added that she was a junior, which is one of those criteria that I had as the employer right away. I want a junior or senior. So within the first line, I already know that this person has met 3 of my qualifications. Education, absolutely you must have as the second category because you're currently a student, right? So the employers want to know what you're studying, what degree you're completing, and then the dates to the right are your anticipated dates of graduation. So that's why it says May 20XX, right? Whenever you plan on graduating. If you're graduating winter, then it would be December 20 whatever. Second line is the name of your university. GPA is optional. This student happens to have a really strong GPA, 3.5, point of pride, throw it on there. But if you know, let's say it's your first semester and you don't really have, you haven't even completed the semester, you don't have an official GPA yet, don't worry about listing it. This is really focused on accounting, but this person also put that they're CPA exam eligible, which is really interesting to me as an employer. It's a bonus, it's a preferred. I didn't ask for it, but it's there. And then relevant skill coursework. This is really important, especially if you're a student with limited experience. You can actually highlight the key courses that you're taking if they're connected to the type of internship or position you're seeking. In this position, this resume was really written for that description we looked at. They said something about completing introductory coursework. So here the person's really listing not only some important courses, but they're in intermediate level. So I know for a fact that the only way they can get into intermediate is if they passed that elementary level. So that's really helpful to list those courses. Now, I also get questions on how many courses. Should I list every course I've taken? Absolutely not. I would say maybe 3 to 5 of the most relevant courses as they relate to the position that you're looking at. Don't put the course number, like, 100W for writing. People outside the university have no idea what that means, right? So use the title. So it's like writing for business, electrical engineering level 1. Use those titles, but not the actual course code numbers. The next section you can use is what we call project experience or relevant project experience. And that highlights projects that you've done in class. And the way you would list it is you basically just give your project a name. In this case, this person did an accounting information systems manual project. You put that in bold so that the project stands out. And you'll notice that bolding is used just for the sections and then key items that you want the employer to be aware of. So we use it to highlight the degrees. We use it to highlight the titles of positions, but we don't really use it for other areas. Otherwise, there's too much bolding. And then you put the university where you completed the project. So San Jose State for most people. If let's say you did a project at a previous institution that it was relevant, you can list that there as long as you list the name of the institution where it was completed. And then the dates of when you actually did the project. Most of the projects are by semester. So if it's like fall semester, it could be September through December. If it's spring semester, I've seen some students put spring 2022, 2021, that's fine, right? And then you're going to have 3 to 4 bullet points describing what you accomplished in that project. And this is where you can highlight your skills. This is also where you can show that you're self-motivated, detail-oriented by how you accomplish these things. And so we're going to get into this a little bit deeper. But this is really kind of that formatting and how you start, putting these required skills and highlighting them for employers. You'll also notice some of the, question?
Sorry for interrupting you, but while we're still on the education and the skill listing part, there's some questions about how about those courses that related courses, but probably they're taken from a different platform than the university. And also, is it okay to list the skills word by word?
Yes. So if let's say you completed a course or you have skills, but you got it outside of San Jose State. Let's say you did, and I'm just making this up, but if there's a specific example, let me know. I did a LinkedIn Learning course on Excel. And I feel that that is really relevant to this position. So then what you could do is underneath the relevant coursework, you could add a second section and bold it just like you did relevant coursework and put certificates. And then you would list the name of the certificate or list the name of the course and then where it was issued. So for me, it would be certificates in bold, Excel, introduction to Excel or Excel for accounting, comma, LinkedIn Learning, and then the date. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. Let's say it's, I did it at community college. Then after your SJSU education, after this relevant coursework, you'd hit return and you'd add the next education segment. You don't have to say education again. It'll look just the way you entered this education for SJSU. It would be either the degree you got or the courses that you took. So let's say it's AA and Business Administration in bold, West Valley College, the date that you received that, and that would be the next education entry under that section. I should also say that we list things on resumes in reverse chronological order. So most recent activity comes first and then it works backwards. Okay. What was the other question about listing skills?
Yes, they asked if it's okay to list the exact words that are like self-motivated and detail-oriented on the resume.
Yes, absolutely. So if, let's say, the employer used self-motivated twice. That is clearly something that's important to them. And if you know that you're self-motivated, but let's say you typically refer to yourself as a go-getter who takes initiative. It's basically the same thing as self-motivated, but I'm going to use self-motivated instead of initiative because that is what the employer asked for. And that's what's in the job description. So if this resume goes through an applicant tracking software first, it's actually programmed by what's in the job description. So if I put initiative instead of self-motivated, it's not going to come up as a hit as a keyword for that job description. So absolutely, it's okay to use the exact verbiage. Okay, this is part 2 of this resume. So this is actually a 1-page resume. It doesn't go past a 1 page, but I couldn't fit the whole thing on 1 slide. So we're going to split it up into 2 slides. After your relevant projects, you can then list experience. Okay, so again, the section areas are in all caps and bold, so you know which section is coming up. Experience can include volunteer experience, paid experience. It can include internship experience. So it doesn't necessarily have to be paid experience. Now, if you listed work experience instead of experience, then yes, it would have to be paid work experiences. That's why we just say experience. Employers often tell us that they're surprised that students don't include more of their volunteer work. One, because it is relevant transferable skills that they've used, even though they haven't gotten paid for it, but they're still using those skill sets. And 2, it shows initiative, empathy, care for your community, and multitasking in the sense that you're able to do more outside of the classroom. So if you do volunteer work, definitely, include it on your resume. You can do it as experience, or you can list it under the activities section. This is also good if you don't have a lot of work experience yet. This person was a student assistant and they also did a volunteer job, and that's what they put under experience. Perfectly fine. So experience, job title in bold, where did you do it, who was your employer, and then the dates. Sometimes I get questions about, do I have to put the exact date? Like I forgot, which months, like the exact dates. I think I remember the starting month and the ending month. If you can just do month and year, that's great. Sometimes, if you've been at a place for a couple of years, you can just do years. Okay. And then the bullet points we're going to get into in a little bit more depth about what do you say that you did in this role? This person's first bullet point actually speaks directly to being self-motivated. and just says successfully manage a full academic course load while working part-time to help finance college tuition. Now, that doesn't necessarily talk about skills that they're using as a student assistant, but it is really good information for me as the employer to understand that this part-time job is something that you're doing on top of your full academic course load. Also, this person's getting a 3.5. So they're not only doing really well academically, but they're also doing extra work outside of their classes. And this is to finance their college. So that is self-motivated. You must be detail-oriented if you're trying to manage your calendars and make this all work. So it really shows initiative, I think, grit, stick-to-itiveness, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of characteristic skills here that I think are really important for employers, and they value seeing that. So if you have something that you want to add like that, you can. And then the next two bullet points are just, what did you do in this role? And if you can quantify numbers, that's always helpful. And we'll look at that in the next slide. Okay, and then for the volunteer position, you give that a title. So IRS income tax preparation volunteer. What organization did you do it with? The dates. And then this person actually added 2 bullet points on what they did, because they're actually utilizing Zoom, so technology, to assist over 20 elderly Farsi-speaking clients in completing annual tax returns. Wow, okay. So now I know that they've served and helped others, not just one person, but 20 people, and bilingual. Now, I didn't ask for language skills in my job description, but I will definitely take note of the fact that this person is bilingual and has actually prepared tax returns. That wasn't a required skill, but that might be a preferred skill or something that puts them on top of the list. Activities, if you do any clubs or organizations, absolutely list those. You just list it under activities. If you're a member, you would put member and put that in bold. If you hold an office, definitely list that. President, treasurer, volunteer coordinator. That's really important because it shows that not only are you attending meetings or a member, but you're taking an active leadership role. So put the title, put it in bold, the name of the association, and then the dates that you're a member. And then last but not least is the skills section. And here's where you can start listing some of those skills. Mostly technical and languages, like actual, either programming languages or languages that are spoken globally can be listed. Some people will list here like self-motivated, detail-oriented, strong communication skills. That's okay, but if I haven't seen how you use those skills, it doesn't really mean much to me because I don't know you. I've never met you before. I'm just reading what you're putting on paper. So not terrible to list some of those other skills at the bottom, but if you haven't demonstrated how you've used those skills in the accomplishments under the experiences, it might not go as far. Okay, we covered a lot. I'm going to pause. Are there any questions thus far on the formatting or how to set some of this information up?
I have some questions in the chat. Would you like me to read it out loud for you?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
So the next one, Asim asked that should we stick to a one-page resume, or is it okay if it's 2-page long? And what's the good word count length?
That's a really good question. So I will say that the formatting best practices is don't go smaller than 10-point font. Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, those are kind of the common fonts. So don't get too fancy with fonts. As far as your margins, now you can play with margins. I would still, you can go as wide as, the standard is like 1/2-inch margins of white space around. Am I measuring that? No, if you did like 3/4 or, 1/4 of an inch margin, I may not notice that, but the point of the margin rule is really to ensure that you have some white space so it's not just crammed with data, because what happens is then your eye has nowhere to look and you just see content, right? Use white space as a way to break up sections, right? So if you see like after the objective, the next section's education, there is at least one return hit of a white space in there, right? Maybe that's about 10 or 11 sized font of just white space, because then that helps the eye kind of break up the content and start looking down. This resume fits a page. So if you have this much content, you can get it on a page. Now, let's say you're a graduate student and you have your undergraduate experience, which you think there's some stuff that's definitely relevant, and plus what you're doing as a graduate student. Maybe you have done some research as well, and you want to create, after experience, a research section. Totally can do that. 2 pages is fine. Okay, as long as the information that you're putting on that resume is relevant to the position. If you're just listing everything you've ever done and it took 2 pages, it's too much, right? But if all the information on there is relevant to the position and it's written concisely, and it's maybe 3 to 5 bullet points of statements related to what you did in those roles, not like 20 bullet points, but like 3 to 5 bullet points of a description, then I think that's fine. The only exception to that rule is if you're applying for academic jobs, you're looking at, let's say, a graduate school application PhD program where they're asking for a CV or curriculum vitae, which basically means the course of one's life. Those can be up to 20 pages long, but that's a different workshop. But for what you're probably looking for like jobs and internships in industry, 1 page, if you have, some experience, 2 pages max, as long as it's relevant. Beyond 2 pages, it starts getting really hard to read. There's CEOs that don't have more than 2-page resumes. So, okay. And then Twee, you can ping me if there's anything else that comes up. I wanted to highlight here under skills, this person put QuickBooks. It was listed as a preferred skill. I think they said if QuickBooks a plus, absolutely put QuickBooks on there. Okay, we talked about what an applicant tracking system is, but one reason that it's really good to spend all that time on analyzing the job description is because that job description is what's programmed into that applicant tracking system for the keywords. So if you wrote your resume targeted to that job description, I can almost guarantee you that you'll have a very strong chance of getting past that scan and into the pile for people to actually read, versus just going through this scanning system. Use standard formatting means that simple text format that we talked about. You can save formats in PDF, but you have to really look at if the application program accepts anything other than Word when you upload it. And you can also just do a Google search to see what the common ATSs accept, like what format, so PDF, okay, or just, Word. And the most common ones are listed here. So ICIMS, Taleo, and JobVite are some of the most common applicant tracking systems used across major companies. And if you Google them, they'll talk about kind of the formats that are approved. Pro tip, you can do that, or there's a resource called JobScan, and I don't know if anyone's heard of JobScan before, so if you have, just put yes in the chat, just so I have an idea. The website's listed here, but what's cool about JobScan is it basically takes all of the most common ATS platforms and then integrates them to basically scan resumes based on their criteria. So if you have a job description of something that you want to apply to, you can go to JobScan and then it just says free scan. Don't pay for it. It's absolutely free. You can drop in the job description into its platform, and then you drop in your resume, and then you just hit create scan, and it will actually scan it against that job description and then tell you which skills you have and which skills you missed. So this is a really quick way if you just want to see like, okay, what have I covered and then what am I missing? So that's what I'm going to work on in my resume. So this person, for example, when they scanned it in the job description, iPhone was mentioned twice and they didn't have it once in their resume. Oh, wow, I should definitely have that keyword in there. Tablets job description mentioned it twice, only once on my resume, probably should ensure that I include that keyword more if I've used it in several other areas. And then the last two, it'll tell you like if it's a predicted skill. So it might not be on the job description, but for this type of role, other job descriptions have mentioned operational analysis and agile software. And you didn't have those on your resume. So if you want to consider preferred skills and you have those skills, those would be good ones to add because in this field or with that job title, that's a common skill that comes up. So this is a really, I think, helpful way of doing that job scanning and resume piece to make sure it meets those ATS requirements. Okay. And if you have any ATS questions, you can pop them in there. And as we get to the end, I'll open it up for Q&A. The other thing I just want you to all be aware of is there are common questions that all of the employers that we work with typically say that they're looking for, regardless of industry. So as you're kind of assessing for what should I put on my resume, just make sure that you highlight, I know all of you are doing this as students. So problem solving you do daily, and that shows up in job descriptions as critical thinking skills, okay? Analytical and qualitative skills. Again, that's basically, are you analyzing anything and having to then synthesize that idea and make a recommendation? You probably do that a lot in reports that you have to write for class, in class projects. Ability to work on the team. Any class projects that were team projects, definitely list that. Worked on a team of 5 to XYZ. Written communication skills, and also, you know, any presentations that you've had to do. And then now with everyone doing hybrid work for the past 2 years, having skills in presenting in Zoom or using, you know, Blue Jeans or any other of the visual kind of conferencing software is really something to add under skills too. And then initiative, are you able to, initiative and leadership kind of go hand in hand. That's something that comes up a lot. And then work ethic. And all of you use these skills on the daily. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that you have these skills and that all employers seek them. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go quickly through this because I think most of you know what your transferable skills are, and those are skills that translate to various industries. But if you ever get stuck on, I don't know what my skills are, these are just some prompting questions that might be helpful. What problems do you like to solve? Also, this is an interview question. I've heard this asked many times in interviews. So what problems do you like to solve? Which classes are you doing well in? Which strengths or skills do you like using the most? So you might be good. Okay, so an example is I happen to be good at math. I don't enjoy using that particular skill set on the daily. So while it's a potential strength for me, it's not a skill that I'd like to use every day on the job. And then any new skills you've had to build in the last 2 years. Mostly probably virtual and online things, but these are things that can help you also think about other skills to add onto your resume. I know everyone's using Zoom, we're using it now, Google Chat, all of these things can be skills that you list under your skill section on your resume. And then check in with people that know you well. If you get stuck, like, what do you think I do well? Or what have you seen me do well? One, it'll actually be good for your ego and make you feel good to know that you have a lot of strengths. And two, it might remind you of things that you don't recognize about yourself, but that other people see you do all the time. Okay, let's move on. Pro tip, we have an actual guide, a resume and cover letter guide. I'm gonna have Twee pop that link into the chat for me. It's also listed on this slide. If you get stuck as far as like what types of statements can I use to start writing my bullet points that describe my experience, or I don't actually know if I listed all my skills, I need like a quick list to review. This action verbs list, which is in a resume cover guide, is really helpful. And I actually will go through this myself sometimes and like say, okay, in communication, if I kept using the same word over and over again, like collaborated, bullet point, next bullet point, collaborated, you know, directed. If I use those 3 words a lot, it's time to mix it up, because if you use the same accomplishment statement verb, it gets a little bit redundant. So instead of, you know, using collaborate again, I might look at this list to find other verbs that might be good ones to replace, so that I'm mixing up the types of skill sets that I'm highlighting. Okay. Most common resume mistakes. I need you to know this so that you don't make them. First one, grammar, spelling errors, happens all the time. But you know, you've been looking at the same document over and over again. You've used spell check, you use Grammarly. Please just come into the career counseling office. We'll talk about how you can make an appointment with us and have someone else review it, or even have a faculty member review it, or your advisor review it. Just one other set of eyes to make sure that you don't have any grammar or spelling errors. Did everyone get the spelling error in this one? This example? I'm waiting to see the chat if anyone answers it, but it's basically the multitasking. This actually was one we saw before. Should be multitasking, but that's kind of funny, multitasking. Not targeted to a specific job or field. So I'm the hiring manager at IKEA, and you're saying I want a job at IKEA. I'll be like, which one? I have like 200 positions posted right now. So I need to know right away, like, what is this tailored to? Is it like customer service? Is it retail? Is it design? Is it, you know, corporate? Be really specific with the type of job that you're applying to. And then listed tasks rather than accomplishments, right? So made coffee, served customers, responsible for answering phones. I mean, okay, I get an idea of what you did, but I don't know how you personally made an impact in that organization, or how your skill sets actually help solve specific customer problems, right? So just listing responsibilities is not always enough. And then the hardest part of writing resumes, according to the students, like every student I met with, is writing these accomplishment statements, right? Because you want to be the person who stands out from the crowd. And how do you do that? It's really strong accomplishment statements. Okay, so what are accomplishment statements? They are those bullet points that describe what you did in either your projects, your experiences, or your volunteer work. And the way that I think is easiest to break them down when you're trying to write them is to think about what you did. And it's usually like a problem that you had to solve, or a situation that you were placed in, right? And then how did you do that? How did you solve that problem? The how is actually the bullet points. And those always should start with a verb. Developed, led, collaborated, communicated, presented. These are the methods, the skills that you use to solve a particular problem or situation or task. And then the most important thing that sometimes is hard or people forget is, what were the results? So as a result of this presentation or collaboration or programming, what was the outcome? And those 3 types of bullets really make strong accomplishment statements. So let's look at an example. Not a great one, but like, you know, good enough. So this is common. We see customer service, pretty common position for a lot of students. Actually great position to have, because it does use a lot of those transferable skills we talked about earlier. You'd put the title in bold, the dates that you did it, and then where did you do this? This one happened to be on campus. The person did, they made a check-in system, greet customers, presented at staff meetings, contacted clients remotely. Okay, so I have a basic idea of what they did, but what I can't tell you is if they did any of this well. I don't know, right? So what we can do is look at adding maybe that list of verbs and picking some of those, how did I do this? So if this person made in a check-in system, I'm gonna be like, well, how'd you do that? That's great, tell me more. So we start with developed, new check-in system. Why did you make it? To process clients more efficiently. What was the result? Ensuring approximately 200 clients per week received their services. That's impressive. Okay. Increased, what was the second one? Greet customers. Okay. What impact did that have? Well, actually increased average customer satisfaction ratings by 25%. How? Well, using that new check-in system that I just made. Okay, and then the last one is gather data from the check-in system to create Excel reports and present in person or virtually at monthly staff meetings to assess services and improve efficiency. The third bullet point just said presented at staff meetings. And then the last one was assessed goals of corporate clients over Zoom and suggested appropriate campus resources. This is a super impressive set of accomplishments for what, you know, most students say, well, that was just my on-campus job. Oh my gosh, but you did so much, you used so many skills. So I'm going to pause really quickly there and see if there's any questions on accomplishment statements.
I think there's one that is kind of related in terms of when you want to show written communication skills, for example, within this bullet point, should we include a term paper or any link as an example?
Like a link to actual work?
Yeah.
Like a portfolio?
Probably with this just for one skill. So I think the
So I wouldn't put any hyperlinks or link within the description. Mostly because if it has to go through an applicant tracking system, that might throw the system off. Right? But what I would do is add that example or link in your LinkedIn profile. And when you looked at the contact information, after your name, phone number, email, LinkedIn profile, that is a beautiful place to put examples of work. The other way I've seen it is like maybe at the bottom of a resume where it used to say references available upon request. No one says that anymore. If I want your reference, I'm going to ask you, right? So no need to waste a line on that. But you could put portfolio or examples of work available upon request. And then if I would like to see something specific about a writing sample, or if you had an example of a paper that was written, I can ask you for that. But I wouldn't necessarily put a direct link within the resume. Good question. Okay. Now that we've gone through all that, let's check in. I haven't heard from you all in a while, so I'll make sure you're still there. Which is the best accomplishment statement in your opinion? And then if you want to share why. So, led a team of 10 volunteers to run a campus-wide orientation. Recruited and managed team of 10 volunteers to launch campus-wide orientation, resulting in highest satisfaction rating by participants. Or C, in charge of volunteers that helped me with a campus orientation. Oh, okay. What do we got, Twee?
A lot of B. Only B so far. Yeah.
Anything besides B?
I haven't seen one.
Oh, good. Okay. So I would say B absolutely is the best. I would say, and honestly, when I'm basically putting together like a resume or updating my own, I might just put a C as a placeholder. Like I was in charge of volunteers during orientation. I might not have the time to write a really good accomplishment statement in that moment, but I actually do have a master resume that's like 7 pages long where I just throw things on to remind me of accomplishments or new skills that I'm using so that I don't forget. And when I go back to like writing my resume, let's say for a new position or a promotion, I can look at that master list and be like, oh yeah, I did that volunteer thing. Okay, what did I do? How did I do it? What were the outcomes? So then I have time to actually think and write the accomplishment statement. So there's nothing wrong with starting with C, which probably could get you to A. A is not bad. I'm going to say, like, if I saw led a team of 10 volunteers to run a campus-wide orientation, I'd be like, okay, cool. I know that you can lead a team. I know that it wasn't just one person. And I know that you impacted a campus-wide orientation, but it's not as impactful as the last one that also told me how you made an impact by that leadership turning into high satisfaction ratings by participants. So you can see the evolution here. So if you guys got to A, I wouldn't be mad at you. I'd be like, not bad. If you can get to B, gold star. but I don't want to see any C statements if you come in and show me your resume, right? Because we've done this workshop, so. Okay, cool. Other pro tip. Back to this guide. This guide is awesome. If you go to pages 4 and 5 of this guide, it will actually give you examples of accomplishment statements based on skill. So the question about writing, it's like, oh wait, what else could I put for writing? You can go look at this on writing, and then just, there's 2 example bullet points, just to get you an idea, because again, writing these statements can be hard, right? So this is a good resource, I think, for just tips on writing accomplishment statements. Okay, and I can't end without a final note on ethics, okay? Because this has come up before, and it's very common, I think, when people feel like maybe they don't have enough on their resume, or, you know, is an employer really going to look at my information? I've also seen like some high profile cases of like senators and college deans maybe lying on resumes or not being fully honest on resumes. So I don't want anyone to have any issues with their resumes. But just some common things that have come up in the past: inflating or misrepresenting your GPA. So if you have a 3.88, can you put that you have a 3.9 GPA? What do y'all think in the chat? If I have a 3.88, can I just round it up to 3.9? I mean, it's pretty much 3.9. What am I getting in the chat?
We have one no. Let's see. Nope, no.
No.
Yeah.
Do not round it up, please don't. If you have a 3.88, just put 3.88. It's not a 3.9. Very few employers are asked, I get requests like, we want to see transcripts, but there are few. And most of them are related to accounting, finance, several engineering areas. So it's just good practice. Put your current GPA. If it's not great, you had a bad semester, you don't have to put your GPA. Just list your courses and the things that are highlighted that are your skill sets, your strengths. You also can do overall GPA versus major GPA. Your overall GPA is your GPA that includes your general education courses. If that's higher and you put overall GPA and that's, you know, 3.8, fantastic. Major GPA is calculated just based on those courses within your major and don't necessarily include your GEs. And the major GPA is sometimes higher for people. If that one's higher and you put major GPA so that they know which one it is, then go for it. But just make sure that you list the specific of is it overall and major. And now you're going to ask me how to calculate that. And then what I'm going to say is you need to go to your academic advisor, because they can calculate major versus overall GPA. I don't want to give you the wrong number. Number 2, don't make up impact numbers or stats. Like, if, you know, this whole increased customer satisfaction thing is hard. So if you work for a certain office and they're tracking, you know, customer surveys, and you know that because you created something, you helped, or you got like a lot of positive reviews as like a server or as a customer service agent, then you can list that. But if you're just saying like, well, most people seem happy to see me when they come in, so I'm going to say I increased customer satisfaction by at least 50%. Okay, that's not a real stat, right? You can state that, you know, you increased customer satisfaction because you've observed that, but you don't have an actual number of how much, okay? Don't list false or assumed dates of employment. And don't misrepresent your experience or knowledge, because if you get past, you know, like you get reviewed and you're like, let's say you said you're expert level Excel, but you really maybe took that one LinkedIn course, and then you come in for the interview and I might, you know, give you an example or a case to work on and say, can you put, you know, work on this spreadsheet and show me how you would do a pivot table for it. And you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. That's not going to bode well for you. And it's actually going to not lead you to get past that interview. So, okay. And I know no one's going to do this, but I just want to make sure that we cover it. Okay, next steps. Let's just open it up for questions, and you guys can look at this if you have any next steps, because we are at time. But anything that I have not covered that you all still need me to address?
think there's a lot of the last questions was about the GPA and the equivalency system in terms of international students versus the US scale.
Ah,
Yeah. So
okay.
any advice on how to do that?
Yes. So if you're an international student, most companies, if they are asking for your GPA, like for an internship, like if there's a minimum requirement, are going to want the US equivalent of your GPA, which you're probably not going to get until you complete at least one full semester. If that's the case, you can list, like if you identify like for your undergrad, or let's say your degrees from a different country, and let's say the highest rating is out of a 1 to 10 scale, you can list like rated 9 out of a 1 to 10 scale for, you know, education system in India. As long as you describe what the context of that is, that's helpful, because and now I understand that that's a very strong score. The statement or the information that usually I think resonates most with employers, if it's for an international degree, is like what your class ranking is. So if you know your ranking, and I think there's some institutions abroad that will rank students like, you know, top 5% of the class, top 1% of the class, you know, number 3 in a class of 382, that class ranking helps as well. But as far as GPA, like once you're applying to positions here domestically, they're going to look at the 4.0 scale. And so that's definitely probably what you want to include. If there's not a GPA requirement, don't worry about putting GPA. Only put things that are your strengths. So like, let's say there's no GPA requirement, but I happen to have a kick butt GPA, which is considered like anything above a 3.5. Then I'm just going to list it because I want the employer to know that I happen to be really doing strongly academically as well. But less and less employers are putting as much weight on GPA as they are on specific skills and experience. And why is that? Because I think more employers are understanding that really strong candidates, qualified students exist. They might just have a bad semester. Like it's happened to all of us. And that messes with your GPA. And so if you're really, you know, taking people out of the running because of like a GPA that did not meet a certain requirement, you might be missing a really great candidate who just happened to have one bad semester. So, you know, I think the hope is that we move away from like really focused on GPA and more about experiences and skills. Okay, so this is just information on how to find us. If you have any additional questions, I'll have Twee put the check-in form again in case you came in late, if you want a copy of the recording and the slides. And then if you could be so kind as to provide us feedback and fill out our survey. Presenter, I'm Anita, but you can just put resume workshop. But we really look at our surveys closely. So if there's anything we can improve, any topics that you think you'd love to hear about, please let us know. And then everyone who submits a survey, they actually get entered into a raffle to win a $20 Amazon gift card at the end of the semester. So you can either look at that hyperlink or there's a QR code there. And with that, I thank you for joining me this lunch period. I had fun talking resumes with all of you. I'll stick around for a little bit if there's any burning questions. Otherwise, we are done. And I wish you a great rest of your Friday and a fantastic weekend.